hasn't served you at all. When does the story end? Like, so the insight that your father was overbearing, or your mother was a perfectionist, or you were beaten as a kid, and that's why you're this way, it doesn't change the behavior.
Check. Check one. Check. Check.
I really want to focus in on what it is we're getting wrong when we're trying to treat trauma in modern society, because I see all of these retreats that are like inner child healing, and they kind of take you back to when you were a young child, the thing that happened to you, whatever happened in your life, and they kind of walk you back through it. There's also various types of therapy that make you kind of recount the events and then they ask you questions about it. You're saying that you don't feel like those approaches are optimal because they just keep you in that circuit of reliving the emotion.
No, I wouldn't say they're not optimal. I mean, I'm sure there's value for people. All I'm saying is that when does the story end? And I'm not certain that insight changes behavior. You could have a realization, or even from an exogenous drug, you can have a realization or an insight. But if you still can't function in your life and you're still, you haven't connected with your wife, or, you're still dealing with trauma, it hasn't served you at all. Like, so the insight that your father was overbearing, or your mother was a perfectionist, or you were beaten as a kid, and that's why you're this way, it doesn't change the behavior.
Let me give you an example then from my life, because this will make it really specific. So when I was young, something I've talked about a lot on the show, but it's just an example that allows me to think through your approach. My mum and dad argued a lot, and I would watch my mother in particular spend a lot of time shouting at my dad. My dad didn't really respond. He was very passive. And it made me feel a certain way as a young child, which meant that when I grew up, I just wanted to avoid women at all costs in terms of romantic commitment, because I was almost reliving the emotion of imprisonment that I observed in my father. So I felt like when a girl was interested in me throughout all of my teen years, throughout my early 20s, even if I was interested in her, the minute we came to commitment, I'd get that feeling like I was signing up for prison, and I would reject. Now, I got an insight into this by writing in my diary, actually from doing this podcast, because I used to do it on my own, just solo episodes. And I could see a pattern. I could see that someone asks me to commit, I get this weird feeling, I reject them. And then I asked myself, where did that weird feeling come from in your past? And I remembered, that's how I felt watching my father and my mum when she would just scream at him for long periods of time. I had the insight, which was somewhat useful, but you're right in that it didn't necessarily stop the feeling.
But what you did really well is in order for us to change.
I think we all have a story about how we were raised, or different teachers that influenced us, or friends, whether it's trauma that we're trying to let go of. And Stephen said, like, his mother was overbearing, his dad was super passive, and so he got cold feet whenever he wanted to get close to a relationship. We can all relate to stuff like that. And I know with the way I was raised, my mom was very controlling. My dad was very passive. And I grew up knowing that that's not what I wanted in my life. I did not want to be the boss of anybody. I didn't want to be controlling. I wanted a partner that was more equal to me. Right. So I looked at it as, that's what I don't want in my life.
Right. So going off Stephen's story here, like his mom was the bag, his dad was the passive one. Mm-hmm. But he makes reference to it that he wouldn't commit to a woman in his adult life, which is a little bit weird.
But he didn't want to be bossed by anybody.
You think so?
It seems like he's pretty passive too, Sucker. So I'm guessing that he didn't want he didn't want to commit to anybody, and all of a sudden she's going to be the boss of him. Nobody's going to control me.
Right. But what's the and this might be way off in left field here, but what's the correlation between his mother's role and his role of commitment to a woman in his adult life.
He didn't want to commit to an abusive relationship because he grew up with that, and he was surrounded by that every single day.
Is that the tie?
I think so.
Like it had. This is not sexual at all, right? Like it's just a little bit weird to me that that's the correlation.
It's absolute control. No one's going to control me, and so whenever somebody tried to get too close to him, he pushed them away.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because
yeah, okay.
Our viewers might think that's weird too, or if I'm thinking it's weird, somebody else might think that.
Your pants are weird.
Yeah, well.
Okay.
We have to become so conscious of those unconscious beliefs. And what's a belief? A thought you just keep thinking over and over again, or how you've been programmed, right? It's a belief.
I just want to stop that real quick there. For people that Joe uses some, I'm going to call them big words, but he uses words like conscious and unconscious and consciousness and is back and forth and insight and language of the heart and language of the mind and some verbiage that we're just not used to hearing.
No, we aren't.
In everyday language. So for a first-time viewer that's going through this stuff that's just starting to touch the surface on it, it can be a lot to hear all these conscious, unconscious, yada, yada. I just wanted to make a point of saying, so the unconscious state is basically a daydreamer, right? Your mind isn't in the present moment. Present moment meaning you and I are having a conversation. We're watching this video.
Right here, right now.
Right here, right now. I'm not on my phone. I'm not thinking about what's for dinner, picking the kids up at school or whatever that is. I'm right in the present moment.
Right.
And we spend most of our day as a program, is what he's talking about, that we have been programmed to stay unconscious, meaning we're on autopilot.
We don't live in the present moment.
Right, because when the mind takes a backseat to the body because you've trained it to be habitual, you've trained it for muscle memory. How many courses were on muscle memory growing up, right?
No kidding.
Right, and the mind memory, all that stuff. So muscle memory practice, you're a guitar player, you're a piano player, it's all muscle memory, right? Riding a bike, muscle memory.
Exactly.
So in that state of being, you are absolutely, what he's making reference to is being unconscious. Right? Oh, you hit a curb with your bicycle tire and you fell off. Why? Because you're unconscious.
But we've all done that.
You're just not paying attention.
We've all done that. Driving a car. Have you ever left home? You get to the grocery store and you go, "How did I get here? Did I run a red light?
Did I? Light? Yeah.
Because you're thinking about something else, you're planning. You're in a hurry to get groceries because you got to get home. You've got a dinner party, and you're just completely unconscious as you're driving to the store.
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of wrap that up in a way that might make a little bit more sense. At least it does in my mind. And like you go to the store for a loaf of bread. You come home with everything but the loaf of bread. Because you're unconscious. You're daydreaming. You're moving forward in your day.
And you walk by all these sales racks and you go, sure, we should have chips or buns or whatever else, and you completely miss the bread.
So just to differentiate, so that's unconscious. So conscious is here and right now.
The present.
You're enjoying life. You're living life. You're actually living life right now.
Yep.
Consciousness is the field. And the quantum and all that stuff. And we'll get into that later on in this series here. But anyway, let's carry on.
We have to become so aware of our automatic habits and behaviors. And we have to pay attention to our emotional states if we're going to change. And staying conscious of our unconscious self is really the work that it takes to really overcome so you can become another person. That's 95% of a person by the middle of their life. They're hardwired attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions, automatic habits and behaviors, and unconscious emotional responses. 95% of us is programmed. So as a child, your brain waves are very slow. The door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open. Your brain waves are in alpha and theta, and so you're very suggestible to the information. And so your exposure to that caused you to learn that your observation caused you to get programmed to that's the way life is by mirror neurons looking at behaviors that are being programmed in you. But that's not who you are, right? So the fact that you became conscious, like, oh my God, I do this. Oh my God, I see where I got it from. Okay, that doesn't mean that I'm going to excuse myself and say I can't be in relationships. You could. Some people do that. Might be a different belief, but they do that. But you said, I really want to have a meaningful relationship. I really want to overcome this. This is part of me that I want to change, right? So you recognize that. That's called metacognition, right? The fact that you can objectify your subjective self and observe yourself, that's consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're conscious, then that's when you're not unconscious. Mm-hmm. And being unconscious is being in the program. So how many times do we have to forget until we stop forgetting and start remembering? That's the moment of change. So you said, okay, that's uncomfortable. That must mean something. And you actually went on a personal exploration.
Yeah.
Do something with the insight, with the provocation, with the interest of actually wanting to change yourself in some way so that you create a greater experience of life, that there is love in life and that you can have a committed relationship and it can be different from your parents. And now you know what you're not going to be, right? So I think all of that is valuable. I think every experience that we have in our life that programs us to be a certain way, sooner or later, if we're interested in arriving at the goals and dreams that we want, we have to leave that behind. Sooner or later, a part of us must die. And sooner or later, we have to leave that. So I think that's evolution.
That is the first step insight. Like, is this a sequential, multi-step process to change?
I think insight is an aspect of awareness.
So is awareness stage one?
Yeah. So consciousness is awareness, and awareness is paying attention and noticing. So I think the first step is to become conscious.
I won't interject a whole bunch all the time, but that's important what he just said. The consciousness is all about the awareness. But if you keep bringing yourself back from the unconscious space of, it's a nothing burger. You're daydreaming, right? Mm-hmm. You're with me on this conversation?
This is part of the script?
What script?
Like we're injecting this or not?
Yeah, I'm hoping to.
Okay.
But you're looking at me like you're being unconscious now because you're busy doing that, right?
Pulled a Steven.
That's an absolute real life example, right? So, and I know I don't profess to be like Joe, but I get what he's laying down. I 100% understand it. Because we keep going back and forth and back and forth. So the first step to awareness in the consciousness space is the field. But the first step is to become conscious, which is right here. Not writing on a book, not writing on an iPad, Stephen. Mm-hmm. It's right here, right now. And the second you feel yourself drift off because you're reaching for the pen because you want, radishes with your salad.
I've left the present.
You've totally left the present. Mm-hmm. And in that exact moment in time and space on a linear table, you are no longer creating the life that you deserve. You're giving that to something else, which isn't you. Mm-hmm. And I get goosebumps just talking about it. Right? Mm-hmm. I should be a doctor.
Sure.
That we're a certain way. And sometimes it lands as an insight or a download or a life experience that just kind of you go, whoa, like, so I behaved this way or I did this thing. So I think when you don't have that, you don't have a conscience, and you can just keep staying in that world. But sooner or later, you have to become aware.
How do I increase my awareness?
By paying attention. Is
there a practice or a system or a process?
Yeah. But what we know is that the more you practice being present, the better you get at it.
Okay.
And so how do you do that? If you sit in a meditation, right, And so there's a mode in the brain called default mode, and it's just always busy. It's consuming enormous amounts of energy in the brain, and it's always trying to predict the future based on what it knows in the past. It's a kind of an anticipation machine. It's always trying to fill in a known in reality so we feel safe. So a default mode system in the brain, when you close your eyes in a meditation, is going to immediately go into overdrive. It's going to say, oh, my back hurts a little bit. I'm kind of thirsty. How long is this going to go? I really don't want to do this. I don't like the music. It might be too long. Oh, I'm starting to get a little frustrated. I want to lay down. All of this stuff comes up. And then people have the belief and they say, I can't meditate. That's their conclusion from the experience. That's their, I'm not a good meditator. That's their affirmation. That's their belief, right? From that experience. But if you say to a person, listen, that's normal. But every time you catch yourself going unconscious and become conscious, that's a victory. And as tedious as it may be in the beginning, the more you catch yourself going unconscious and becoming conscious, the more conscious you become in your life. And all of a sudden, you begin to pay attention to things that you weren't paying attention to before. So in the work that we do, we say that being in the present moment, truly in the present moment, is being comfortable in the unknown, right? The present moment is the unknown because there is the familiar past that we feel emotionally, and we have the predictable future, which are both the knowns. Being in the present moment is being in the unknown, and that goes against thousands of years of programming because our biology is programmed that if we are truly in the unknown, we should be in survival. Because if you're in survival and you're in the fight or flight system, the unknown is a threat, it's a danger. So always try to predict the future based on the past and you'll have better chances of survival. Predict the worst case scenario, be ready for that. Anything less that happens, you have better chance of surviving. So then to rest in the unknown goes against a lot of our biology. And we discovered that when a person keeps doing it over and over again, the body gets agitated, it gets frustrated, it gets impatient. Instead of the person saying, I quit, give them something to do and they can lower the volume to the emotion and settle the animal down, like training an animal, settling the body back down into the present moment. We teach people how to do that, and that's the victory.
Yeah, interesting that he says settle down to the present moment. How many people do you know that are in the present moment?
Nobody.
How many times have you been in a restaurant or
Yeah.
speaking with a friend or family member or whatever, and they're glued to their phone, or they're talking about tomorrow, what are we going to do next year, next week, or when I retire, I'm going to do this, and it's almost like they've stopped living right now because everything's always going to get better in the future, next week, next month, next year, or when I turn 70.
I know people within my own family that are so ingrained in this unconscious space that they've mapped out their entire existence right to the day they put the foot in the box. And
there's nothing between here and there.
So now if they're in retirement time, some of them are just retiring, they're just waiting to die, right? And what is that going to do to your mental health, your mental acuity, your cognitive decline or cognitive ability in general? It's going to do nothing but make you die, right?
Yep.
That's the philosophy. And how do you argue that? How do you say, no, that's wrong, you're cuckoo or woohoo, as they
I'm
say?
living the dream.
Yeah, no, I don't think you are, because it's not your dream, it's somebody else's.
Giving them something to do.
Yeah, they have it. They have something to do when that comes up. Okay,
Which is?
I'll get to it in a second. And if they catch their mind going from a person to another object, to their cell phone, to their computer, to a place they need to be, and at a time, and they catch themselves with their brain firing in modulated compartments. If they keep catching themselves doing that, if they keep doing that and they catch the circuit when it's firing and they settle it down, in time, sooner or later, they're going to stop firing those circuits in the brain. And their brain waves begin to change from an agitated, aroused state into a more coherent and slower brainwave state. So when they do this enough times, the brain begins to synchronize. The brain begins to fire in greater levels of wholeness or greater levels of order. So when that occurs, then the nervous system gets very regulated, gets very orderly. The autonomic nervous system moves into a state of regulation. Dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system is called stress, right? So to answer your question, when people do this really well, in just a few days, they'll get really good at it. The side effect of that is they get very relaxed in their heart. It's relaxed in the heart and it's awake in the brain. And the more relaxed you get in your heart, we've discovered, really relaxing into your heart, the more the heart informs the brain to get creative. And so now the person has this kind of synchronization that's taking place between their heart and their brain as well. And they can rest in the present moment. So the way you do that is you define what it really means to change. And to change is to be greater than the conditions in your environment, to be able to think, act, and feel differently in your same environment. That's what change is. To change is to be greater than your body, to be greater than its drives, in the meditation I'm speaking specifically, greater than its emotional responses, its memories, its emotional reactions, greater than its habits. The habit is when you've done something so many times, the body knows how to do it better than the conscious mind. That's so if you're sitting in a meditation, your body wants to get up and wants to get going. You got people to see, things to do. That's kind of like automatic, right? And people get up and they say, I can't meditate. But if you tell them that when you notice that, you bring your body back into the present moment, you settle it down.
Do you not find in general that people are very resistant to change? This is my house, this is my family, this is my job, this is what I do. I'm on the wheel. I'm going.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
You might phone them. Hey, you want to go for supper tonight? Oh no, I've got supper prepped.
Yeah.
Very inflexible. This is the routine. I've got a time slot available. Say Sunday. That's it.
They're super inflexible and
Can't pivot. Can't
and
make
they hate. I don't know if it's a matter of resistant to change. Well, they're
inflexible.
They're totally resistant to change because if you ask them, a good follow-up question to that is, "Are you happy?" Right? Well, it's ridiculous.
Doing the same old.
Yeah. Oh no, I can't do this. I got this, but that's a 7. This is an 8. Ba.
Too
Right.
structured.
It's too programmed.
Yeah.
Right? Going back to what you said earlier about driving to the store and not understanding how many red lights you went through. When I might get a little bit off topic here, but it's still in the same vein. If you actually look for a woman in a white hat,
Oh, we did
right?
that. We did that at the
whole
grocery
experiment
store.
we did, and we drove around and it was a blue hat or something like that, and lo and behold, we saw like 6 of them that day because we were in the present moment.
And we were looking.
We were
We
looking.
weren't unconscious. Yeah.
Right? Because you don't notice these things in life, which is people that are so scheduled under those parameter defined conditions, whatever that is.
Don't lift your head up.
They're not living life. I'll argue that till I'll die on that hill.
Okay.
And tell it it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind. You're training the animal. Sooner or later, the body literally responds to a new mind. And there's literally a liberation of energy. The body begins to liberate energy. And if the person's not thinking about time, if you're not thinking about where you need to be, where you need to go, where you were yesterday, where you're sitting, where you live, if you're not thinking about any place, you can go from somewhere to nowhere. And if you're not thinking about the predictable future or the familiar past, you can go from some time to no time. And we discovered when a person becomes nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time, they literally become pure consciousness. And opening our awareness, I know this is kind of difficult to explain because we're materialists, opening our awareness to nothing and sensing space tends to cause us to move more into the eternal present moment. And there's a change that takes place in the brain. So we teach that.
And Joe says it's kind of hard to articulate that nothing, focusing on nothing, become no
Nowhere,
one,
no time, no place, no
Right.
one.
It is. When you listen to that description, it's like it's so hard to wrap your noodle around that thing. What works for me in that thing, in that description, and I think he should probably work this into his program a little bit because it does exist, is music. Okay, I'm going to use Elaine from Seinfeld as a little carrot here. So everyone knows how Elaine dances, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
she is nobody, no time, nowhere, because the world sees that and she doesn't care.
No,
Right?
you're absolutely right.
So
That's confidence.
But that's a good analogy.
Yep.
So when you put music on and you're driving down the road and you're singing, you're rocking out, and you got your windows open maybe this much, and you're just singing like you're the best thing ever existed. And then you pull up to a light, right? Because people can hear you outside your windows, right?
And people are watching.
No,
for
totally
sure.
watching. But you pull up to a light and you go, right? So now you're conscious of that existence, right?
And why do you care? You'll never see
You
them
don't
again.
care. But then the light turns green and away you go, and you are on another planet, right? You're in nowhere, no time, no place, because you're dancing like nobody's watching. And that, to me, works. So think of your best song. If you're trying to understand, put it together, what he means by that. Think of the best song that's going to get your ass off the couch and get you moving like nobody's watching.
We care
That's
too
a
much
good
about what the
analogy,
neighbors
right?
think. And I was raised in a family of what the neighbors are going to think. Who cares what the neighbors think?
Yeah.
How about what I think?
Well, they all
what I care about.
They all moved away.
Yeah, exactly.
And what awareness comes out of that state? So if I'm looking to change my life because, I'm continually performing habits that are not optimal, I want to be married and have a family, and I want to be productive in my work, and I want to go to the gym, and etc. And my life is just in this horrible cycle of the same old, and I feel shit about myself. I know what I say I want, but I feel shit about myself. Well, what's going to emerge from that process of deep meditation in terms of awareness?
You'll become so conscious of those unconscious habits that more than likely you won't want to do them again. And that's what, for the most part, change is about. So I think people wait for crisis. They wait for disease. They wait for a betrayal, something to go wrong in their life. And that's when they go, okay, I'm ready to change. My message is, why wait, dude? Why wait for that? We can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering. We can learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration. So then you get a collective group of people together that really may have all those bad habits. They may even have bad habits that they don't even know they have. And then all of a sudden they become aware that they've been blaming and complaining and making excuses and feeling sorry for themselves and procrastinating. And they start to reason, if my personality creates my personal reality, if I'm going to create a new personal reality, I got to change my personality. Because this guy that's this isn't the guy that wants to be happy. This is the guy who's committed to being unhappy. Okay, let's break it down. Let's get down the fundamentals. And now we give them a roadmap of their thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that they have lived by.
Is that step 2?
Yeah, you could say that step 2 is becoming conscious of your unconscious self, and then becoming conscious of a new self, reinventing a new self. And so the person who's feeling really bad about themselves because they're not doing anything to change, it's just because when you're not changing, you're still choosing. But what you're choosing is something that makes you feel familiar and comfortable. Because the moment you decide to change, truly get serious about change, the moment you decide to make a different choice and do something differently, you are going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to be immediate. And that's the moment you go from the known into the unknown. Now, if the body has been emotionally conditioned to be the mind, like we talked about earlier, the servant is the master. And so the person who steps out into the unknown and it feels uncomfortable, what is the body going to say? Get back to suffering. Get back to feeling bad. Get back to feeling guilty. At least that's familiar, that's known. So tell a person there's going to be a biological death of the old self. Neurologically, chemically, hormonally, genetically, the old self's going to die. Just know that that's going to happen. But instead of white knuckling it across the river of change, we're going to give you something to do, because that unknown place is the perfect place to create in. So let's get you into the unknown, but let's get you there where you're relaxed and awake. You're not escaping. And if you do that really well, you'll be in a creative state. So you actually will be out of survival and you'll be able to create, because you could only be in survival or creation. Can't be in both. So let's get your body physiologically back in the balance. Let's get it there. Now, who do you want to be? What do you want to believe? Let's review that. What's a belief? A thought you keep thinking over and over in your brain. Keep remembering to think this way in your meditation. How am I going to be with my ex or my boss? Let me close my eyes and think about what greatness looks like, what forgiveness would do, what love would do. Let me close my eyes and mentally rehearse how I'm going to be in that circumstance. I'm going to keep remembering to do these things so I don't forget. Keep doing it over and over again. You start installing the hardware. Repeat it enough times, it gets like a software program. You start behaving that way automatically. And then, my goodness, is it possible to teach our body emotionally how we do want to feel before it happens? In other words, don't wait for your wealth to feel abundant, or your success to feel empowered, or your healing to feel wholeness. That's waiting for something in your outer world to change, to take away the emptiness or lack that you're feeling in your inner world. Teach your body emotionally what it feels like ahead of the actual experience. And the moment you start feeling abundant, you're generating wealth. The moment you can embody empowerment, you're stepping towards your success. The moment you feel grateful and whole, the healing begins, right? So now you're starting to cause an effect in your life. So have the person keep remembering to feel that way and have them practice. Sooner or later, they'll start feeling that way more. And the more they feel that way, the more they'll believe in their future. And some people get so good at doing it that they walk around feeling that emotion, they feel like their future has already happened. And when you feel like the future has already happened, you stop looking for it. And that's when the magic starts to take place in people's lives. The synchronicities, the coincidences, the opportunities, they start coming to them in their life. And that's the reflection of their own personal change.
The synchronicities, the coincidences, I'm a firm believer in
the deja vu moments.
Yeah, those things things are a program, because you get what you create. So it comes to you. They're not coincidences. They're there for a reason. And just to kind of wrap up this segment, when he talks about people not being able to meditate and they can't meditate, and
they can't quiet their mind.
Can't quieten their mind, but they more to the point of when he's talking about the piece where the resistance to change. So some people find it hard to change. It's a lonely road. Okay, so, and I'm saying that from personal experience, that when you decide, because you wait for disease or you wait for a problem, I didn't wait for any of that, any of those pieces.
Well, and as he says, you're addicted to a familiar past.
You are.
Good, bad, or ugly.
Right. So where I'm trying to go with this is that when you do come to that bridge and you do want to make a change, it's going to get lonely. And I'm saying that with passion, because the road that you were on before the change was happening, before you decided to do that, it was lonely anyway, because it was empty. Okay? It was under the guise of, this is what you're supposed to do in life.
Because everyone does it.
Because everyone does it. But if you look at the negative response to that world, well, that was a stupid idea. You'll never do that. I mean, get a job.
What's wrong with you? This
What's
is what
wrong
you're
with
doing.
you? Exactly. So those are all somebody else's ideas
For you.
and they're not your own. And you walk away from that meeting or breakfast or whatever it was, family dinner, and you go, like, fuck me, like I thought I was doing something good.
This isn't for me.
In life, but it doesn't fit with this person or that person. The lonely road starts when you decide to make that change, because you're no longer listening to those people.
You don't care what the neighbors think.
You're no longer listening to those people. So when you do decide to make that change and you're going down that road and you're driving in your car by yourself because there's nobody on the island with you because they think you're nuts, right? How can that be? They think they're nuts. So a support system is crucial to find somebody that wants to make that change as well. His community offers that, right? Us, right? Same idea. If you think that you're going to do this on your own, you're going to let yourself down. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you do need to have somebody with you.
So my personal self, I call this waking up, awakening. I've been doing it for 3 years, and it's a long process. But once you get it, wow, does your world start to change, right? And the people in it, they're not the same people. Why? Because you can't carry that baggage. So now you have to go and show them the love, right? Because that's what all this is about. Anyway, I just wanted to end that segment on that note.
Awesome.
You know what I'm saying?